What's up, man?
Sorry.
You're sorry.
For what? Wasting your time, not telling you sooner.
You didn't clear it up for me then? All I know is that you didn't do so well. You did pretty horrible. Which I kind of guessed because you told me from the minute I started talking to you, you're a horrible liar.
Yep.
So why don't we start over?
It was a hot, muggy, early Sunday afternoon, nearly 100 degrees on the last day of June 2019, when Deputy Yvonne Sheppard of the Clermont County Sheriff's Office stood waiting for the front door of the home on Swings Corner Point, Isabel Road, to open. The deputy was on routine patrol that day in Bethel, Ohio, when she was dispatched to the home to conduct a welfare check on a Jason Hamrick, a recruiter for the United States Air Force. Just before noon that day, roughly 200 miles away in Butler, Indiana, Amy and her husband, Jon Oliver, were preparing to host their son Jason for a birthday party with his 3 children, who were then supposed to spend the week with their grandparents. But the plan was derailed when the Olivers received a text at 11:15 a.m. from Jason's 9-year-old son asking them if they'd seen his father. I said, "Well, no, you guys are supposed to be on your way up here," Amy said in court. I looked at my husband and I said, "Something happened." Within the hour, Amy and Jon are pulling out of their driveway at 12:30 p.m. and heading toward Jason's house to pick up the children. "Can I help you?" was the first thing Deputy Sheppard heard in a heavy Russian accent from 32-year-old Angelina Hamrick, stepping in front of her son, who answered the door. I said, "Yes, I'm here looking for Jason," the deputy replied. "He's not here," Angelina said of her husband, before telling the deputy that she last saw him 2 days prior, at 9 p.m. on Friday, just before she took the kids to get pizza. She said when they got back, she thought Jason was sleeping because his door was closed. But when he didn't emerge on Saturday and then Sunday morning, she said she told her son to call his grandparents and ask about his whereabouts. Angelina agreed to a search of the home. Deputy Sheppard, who was later joined by her boss, Corporal Cooper, went in to take photos, including of Angelina. Jason's room looked like it had been slept in. His uniform and personal belongings were still there, and overall, it did not appear like he had gathered his stuff and left the residence. Jason's gun box was found, but not the gun itself. There were 3 red dots that were observed going down the steps of the basement. When Angelina was asked if anyone had cut themselves recently, she said not that she was aware of. To both cops, this had the ingredients of a suspicious case: a missing husband, his car is still in the driveway, and a wife seemingly detached from the reality of the situation. Angelina said that despite living in the same house, the couple was estranged and didn't communicate with each other. That meant she wouldn't know what his plans were for the night he went missing, she said.
Our problem is, this is very odd. Things don't add up.
The issue is what?
That's a problem.
I'm not sure if he's even in the house when we're coming late from pizza or from downtown and we hear his door is closed. We're not gonna bother him to wake him up.
All day Saturday, today, you never thought
I was
that
thinking
he would have contact with his kids at least?
Well, they have their own phones so they can communicate without me. And I was thinking
they're
if
in the
he's
same
missing,
house.
Yes, and what? Free person can do whatever he wants to. He wants to see his girlfriend, he can go and see her. Why are you supposed to bother? Well,
it doesn't matter what he said. And for him just to vanish and you have no idea and not really seem to care, that's a problem for us.
Okay. But if it's weekend before the 4th of July.
So?
He got a whole bunch of stuff for kids. They've been doing fireworks, and then he went somewhere. I don't know who.
So he's had so he usually has contact with his kids when he's here.
Yes.
And you don't find that strange? And since Friday, he's had no contact with his kids.
I don't know if he did contact them. They have their own phones to call him. And his mother, he usually talking to his mother every day, and his mother never posted that he's missing.
That's why she called us, because he never showed up in Indiana.
Because I told my son to call her where he's at.
But how would he have gotten there?
What?
How would he have gotten to Indiana where he was supposed to be? His cars are
He's
here.
supposed to take kids today to her. And I asked if he's gonna, to ask him if he's gonna come and do it, or we need to hire a babysitter for tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, so that's why I told him
Now
to
he
call.
comes up vanishing Friday. That's even a bigger issue for us.
I don't know what to tell you, but it is what it is.
Deputy Sheppard had spent roughly 5 hours at the home before pulling out at 5:30 p.m., unable to forget what she had just experienced. She said she responds to about 2 missing persons reports a week, with most people expressing some concern about the subject. This was not one of those cases, she would later say. Meanwhile, the Olivers watch as the deputy pulls her squad car out of the Hamrick driveway before they park, get out, and hustle the boys out of the home as Angelina watches them get into the car. Life for the rest of the neighborhood hums along. At this exact time, half a mile down the road, Dean Bicknell had just returned home from a trip to Jackson, Ohio, where he picked up a load of hay from his daughter's place. Dean had, in fact, followed right behind his wife Tanya, who had returned from her mom's house in Rushville, Indiana. Dean took time unloading the hay, so Tanya figured she'd mow the lawn in the meantime. After about an hour, the two were tired, so they decided to grab pizza uptown. On their way back, at around 7:30 p.m., they passed the Hamrick home to get to their gated property. Dean takes a left on the bend, and then immediately right to roll down the driveway when something catches the corner of Tanya's right eye along the fence line. She twists her body a bit, gripping the interior leather of the car door, and tries to get a better look over her right shoulder. She notices out-of-place dead grass clippings covering a red object. She grabs at Dean, shouts his name, and tells him to reverse. Dean backs the car up toward the neighbor's house across the street, and then does a U-turn so the driver's side is closest to where Tanya was looking. He peers over, grabs his phone, and makes this call to emergency services.
Tell me exactly what happened.
There's a dead body laying at the end of our driveway.
Oh my God. I'm sorry?
Yes. It's laying in the ditch. It looks like somebody's tried to cover him up.
Oh my
It's a man.
Are you with him now?
No, he's dead.
How old is he?
I have no clue. My wife is tore up.
Detective Allen and Sergeant Berger will be conducting an interview with Angelina Hamrick. Today's date is June 30th, 2019. The time is 10:32 p.m. You were asking, have we found your husband? Mm-hmm. And the answer is, we may have, we don't know. Because a body was found up the street from your house. We think it's Jason, but we're not 100% sure at this time. Because he's been there at least a couple days, probably. Obviously dead, but we don't, at this point. We had to call out our investigators to take pictures of the scene, because we don't believe he just walked to this place. We believe that someone took him there. There's reason to believe that they're at the scene. So, at this point, we're trying to identify the person that we found. If there's anything you know at this point, this is the time to say it, because anything we find out after this point that you don't tell us looks really bad.
It seems like every law enforcement agency in the state was at Swings Corner Point, Isabel Road that night, surrounding the decomposing body of a man about 6 feet tall and weighing 224 pounds. His body covered, it appeared, haphazardly by dead brown grass clippings. Removing the grass, there was insect activity and discoloration of the face. It was hard to make out who it was.
Well, like I said, what we have to do right now at this point is identify the person that was found.
I don't want to do it.
You don't want to look at him?
No.
Okay.
I'm really afraid.
It's at the point now where we believe we found him, and it's not like he died in his sleep. And like I said, it doesn't appear that he walked to where he was found.
So he drove with somebody?
No, it looks like somebody maybe drove and maybe dumped him where he's at. That's what it looks like to me.
It looks like somebody took him to this spot, and it's not far from your house, and dumped him there on the side of the road. And now we need to figure out what happened.
Surrounding the body were shoe and tire tread impressions and what looked like 4 fingers planted down in the mud, as if someone had fallen. But the ground was too moist to get a cast impression to make any sort of matches. A clean sheet was brought in and positioned next to the body. The idea was to roll the victim over instead of picking him up to minimize the loss of any evidence that might be on the clothing. That little maneuver immediately revealed something that piqued the interest of investigators. The backside of his underwear, 2 belt loops on his jeans, and part of his shirt were ripped. The skin on his back, buttocks, and heels were worn away. It looked like he had been dragged to this location. Before lead detective Sergeant Bernard Berger and Sergeant Christopher Allen arrived at the Hamrick residence, another deputy was dispatched to the home at around 8:45 p.m. to follow up on the missing person report. He did not relay any information about a body being found, and, in fact, no one knew who the victim was at the time. After some basic questions about what Jason was wearing and when she last saw him, he reported that Angelina asked if he thought she killed him and put him in my van. Angelina agreed to be taken into the sheriff's office at just after 10 p.m. to be interviewed.
Right now, my biggest concern is that sometimes people do things, or sometimes there's a reason why things happen.
He's been recruiter. He's been meeting people all the time.
He's what?
Recruiter.
A recruiter?
Yeah, and he meeting people from internet and stuff like this.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody that you can think of that would be concerned?
We didn't live together for 6 months. I don't know.
Okay.
This month we've been just avoiding each other, living in separate rooms.
The next day, Monday, the 1st of July, as Sergeant Allen traveled to Butler to talk to the Hamrick family, and as a deputy canvassed the Hamrick neighborhood, other investigators returned to conduct a search of the Hamrick home. It was light out now, so they had a clearer view of the residence. The only wrinkle was that they didn't know at that point what they were searching for. A weapon and perhaps some cleaning items could be a start. There were large clumps of recently cut dry grass clippings on the property, similar to those found on the victim. Other photographed items of interest were a Clorox bleach bottle on the deck, a swimming pool tarp that, when rolled out by investigators, had a large U shape cut out of it, and the vehicles in the garage. Specifically, in the trunk of the Pontiac were 18 to 20-inch carpet tiles, some opened and some not. To the left of the Pontiac was a red Toyota Sienna van, whose third-row seating had been pushed up and folded. The trunk's floor was lined with cardboard on which sat carpet tiles similar to those found in the other car. Inside the home, investigators were interested in the vacuum system and the rug shampoo toward the back of the living room and kitchen. Jason's clothing and personal items, including the gun box and his wallet, were also found, but not his phone. A theory that started to emerge was, if this was indeed Jason who was killed, his murder could have occurred inside the hour and a half that Angelina and her kids were gone to the Little Caesars in the Meyer grocery store that Friday night. Investigators were able to confirm their location using Angelina's Meyer credit card, cross-referenced against receipts obtained from the stores. And while Detective Berger wasn't 100% sure it was Jason, as the medical examiner still hadn't made an ID, he had a good feeling about it. That was a feeling not shared by Angelina, who numerous times during her interview said she didn't believe it.
So right now, what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to identify the body that we found. And like I said, we believe it's Jason.
I don't want to look at anybody.
Okay, you don't have to look at it.
I just ask his mom to do it. I don't want to do it.
We'll ask.
I'm really afraid of blood and everything.
Okay. You're afraid of blood?
I'm afraid. Yeah, if I see it, I'm gonna pass out.
Is there any reason why you think that if I showed you a picture of him that he would have blood on him?
No, I don't know. But if you told me somebody dumped him, he probably, I don't know. Or you said somebody dumped him?
That's what it looks like. I haven't seen what his injuries are or what made him die.
I'm assuming it's a blood or something. Or how he got killed. Did he choked or what?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. That's what the detectives there are doing.
Well, if it's blood, I don't want to look at it. Well, if it's different, I will try to, but please don't show me anything.
We can have someone look at the picture to identify him, but
No.
what I'm getting at is, what if this is Jason? Okay, if it's his body that we have found, based on what you're telling me, it's possible that someone came to your house and there was a confrontation or something happened at your house that led to him being killed or led to his death. So that means that there could be evidence in your house, is what I'm saying. I have a picture of the shirt.
Blood there? No.
I have a picture of the shirt that the person's wearing. You can't see the person's body at all. Can you look at this shirt and see if you recognize this at all?
I don't know.
It's a red shirt, it looks like.
I don't know what does it say. I can't tell you.
I'm sorry.
I can't tell you.
You can't tell me?
Mm-mm.
So you don't know if that looks like anything he may have, that
No.
Jason may have?
I can tell you for sure, no.
Okay. People handle things differently. I mean, you know, if someone told me someone killed my wife, even if we were getting divorced, I mean, we still have kids together, I think I'd be pretty upset.
I'm shocked and I don't know what to tell you, honestly.
'Cause,
I don't believe it's him.
Detective Berger was perplexed by Angelina's attitude. He explained in plain words that the coincidence was just a bit much for him. Angelina and Jason were engaged in divorce and custody proceedings. She had just moved into the home within the past month despite them being estranged. And then a body is found near the home after Jason's declared missing. What's more, the couple was due in court for custody proceedings the day after this interview.
I'm telling you 100% too, you don't want to believe that Jason's gone.
I
because-
don't want to believe that. I think he's gonna show up tomorrow. We have a hearing tomorrow.
Well,
I have a
we
whole
can-
bunch of evidence. I want to get my kids back. I want to take them away from here. It just... gosh. I still think that he's gonna show up tomorrow, that he have hearing at 10 o'clock.
well, I told you, I'm sorry to tell you, but he's not coming to that hearing. Jason's dead.
42-year-old Jason Hamrick made his final outgoing phone call at just after 3 p.m. and received his last call at just before 7 p.m. local time the Friday he was believed to have disappeared. Both were with people from which Jason hoped to buy a Snap-on tools truck and equipment. Jason had plans to be a tool delivery guy in the Cincinnati area after his planned retirement roughly 3 months after his disappearance. At the tail end of his 23 years in the Air Force, he was toiling away in a high-stress recruiting job with long hours and lots of moving around. It was that moving around that brought him to Korea a little over a decade earlier in 2008, where he met Angelina. The Russian lived a largely isolated life in the motherland. Her parents divorced when she was 3 years old, and her mother spent time in prison. During this period, she was bounced to her grandmother, who worked all day, so she spent much of that time alone. She said she only remembers having 2 friends growing up. At 18, she was contracted by a company to do work in Japan and stayed there for 2 months before moving back to Russia. The company then puts her on assignment in Korea, where she later meets her future husband. The aspiring cop, who didn't have a high school diploma, became pregnant with Jason's oldest son before the two started living apart. Her in Russia, and him in Goldsboro, North Carolina for work. After their first child is born, Angelina once again uproots and moves to the Tar Heel state, where the couple marry on April 4, 2009. A cornerstone of the so-called American dream is home ownership, and years later, in 2017, the couple made the move out to the 5-acre property in Bethel, Ohio. It had a handful of bedrooms, a built-in swimming pool, and was surrounded by a wooded area that gave the kids ample room for play. But the couple had marital issues, which really ramped up when Jason decided to end it in January 2018. She alleged Jason complained that she was a horrible mother who didn't work on laundry and kitchen duties. In May of that year, she reported to the sheriff's office that Jason punched her in the face and pushed her to the floor when she attempted to take his phone. The deputy who responded to that call said Angelina was rubbing and grabbing her face to show signs of a punch. Neither of them filed charges against each other. The sheriff's office was again summoned by Angelina on 4 different occasions in July of that year over various complaints. In the first, she alleged Jason got verbal with her because he was upset she was filing for divorce. but Jason alleged it was because he got rid of her vodka. It was an altercation that resulted in no charges. Days later, she reported 2 separate incidents on back-to-back days that Jason had her sons and she couldn't locate them. She claimed that she had the residential rights to the children, but court paperwork dredged up later showed Jason still had parental rights. Later that month, she claimed Jason had stolen her garage door opener and a set of keys to her vehicle. Her lawyer told the sheriff's office that they would be filing a contempt against Jason in domestic relations court. Angelina had also previously attempted and failed to get a protection order against Jason after she caught him having a text conversation in early March of that year with another woman about poisoning Angelina, who took photos of the conversation.
And I heard you mention through our conversation tonight that, you never wanted to hurt him, but Jason wanted to hurt you. You said you thought that he was trying to poison your tea or something like that. Do you really think that he was trying to hurt you?
According to their conversation, he was saying where to find the hitman and it's need to be end soon. And I found another conversation on Facebook where he talking to one of my friends in Russia, and he been saying, I've been thinking about illegal things to do to her.
Jason had maintained that those conversations were between him and an old friend and that it wasn't serious. But Angelina didn't think so. The alleged girlfriend, a woman named Danielle Kissinger, was the neighbor of Jason's parents in Butler. And Angelina warned the sheriff's office that Danielle's husband was allegedly a drug user who served prison time. So it wasn't a great leap in logic that he may have caught the two together and flew into a jealous rage, she suggested.
If there was somebody that wanted to hurt Jason, if you know somebody that
He wanted to hurt me, I know for sure, but I don't know who would want to hurt him.
Tell me why Jason wanted to hurt you.
I found his messages. If you bring my phone over, I will show you, because I've been picturing everything I found.
Okay.
He was saying like antifreeze in my tea or something like this with his girlfriend. They've been joking about it, and
Who's his girlfriend?
Danielle Kissinger is his mother's neighbor next door.
Danielle Kissinger? That's the mother's neighbor, his mom's neighbor, down in Indiana?
Yeah, and I know that her husband is drug addict too. So I don't know, but they still married, everything seems fine. I can show you the messages.
I think, did you show this to the deputies that were there today? Because they told me they called her. And when they were looking for him, they didn't know if maybe she met him somewhere. They didn't know if maybe she'd come pick him up. But she denies that there's anything going on between them. And that's something
She's
different.
A liar.
She's a liar. Okay.
Danielle, who was a friend of the Olivers, was also friendly with Jason, and the two would talk when they brought their kids over to Amy's house to play. Amy said in court that she didn't know of any relationship Jason had outside of his marriage. If he did, he'd be in big trouble. Adultery in the military is a serious charge, punishable by up to a year in prison under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. The rationale is that this behavior could cripple morale, welfare, and trust. Master Sergeant Michael Wright, who was responsible for morale and welfare of the airmen at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, was involved in the investigation into Jason's disappearance. Jason was assigned in 2017 to the Master Sergeant, who described the recruiter as passionate, quiet, and reserved, had a country feel about him, and, if he trusted you, would open up about his family and himself. The Master Sergeant got to know Jason well, and in turn, Jason introduced him to his wife Angelina. Angelina had texted the Master Sergeant on 2 separate occasions about her belief that Jason was having an affair with another woman. She even asked to meet the Master Sergeant and his colleague at a Starbucks in the Eastgate area about the alleged affair. Angelina had submitted to the Master Sergeant Facebook messages between Jason and Danielle, but the force's legal team found nothing suggesting an affair or unprofessional behavior on his part at the time. She had also sent some photos she took from his phone showing he had received emails to join dating websites, but the Air Force determined it was just spam. They never found evidence of a relationship he had outside of marriage or during the divorce proceedings. Angelina had gradually laid out these allegations in front of Detective Berger in the interview room, even after telling him that things had been fine over the last month.
You and your husband had a pretty rough marriage.
It wasn't rough. We've been living together for months now, and I've been there in the house. Everything was fine.
How long have you been back in the house?
Since like but I'm sure it's about a month.
Despite the problems in the marriage, Jason invited her into his home in early June, in part because she had no place to stay. The arrangement, though, had mutually beneficial components. 5 months earlier, in January 2019, Jason won custody of the children, and the Hamrick home was his and his alone. Being invited back in gave Angelina a roof over her head, her children to be near, and $1,700 a month in child support that she put toward a debt she otherwise wouldn't have been able to pay down because she didn't have steady employment outside of driving for Uber.
I told you, we found a body and stuff like that. I've told you that we believe it's Jason. If I'm able to prove that Jason is the person we found, that he was killed, how does that make you feel?
I feel bad because I don't know what I'm gonna do. Honestly, I can't pay the mortgage. I don't have a job. I don't know where I'm gonna go.
Angelina's 2-hour interview bled into Monday, the 1st of July, when she was transported out of the sheriff's office after asking for a lawyer. Detective Berger then requested Jason's dental records and his fingerprints from the Air Force to assist the medical examiner in making an identification. The medical examiner determined that this man, confirmed to be Jason Hamrick, was dead for at least 48 hours, killed with a single 9mm round to the top of his head and left lodged in his fractured right jaw. The soot on the bone suggested the barrel of the gun had been pressed against his skin, the lesions on his back, butt, and heels mentioned earlier, confirming that it appeared he had been dragged on a hard surface, such as a roadway. Indeed, investigators found evidence supporting just that. At several points between the Hamrick residence and the dump site, there were fragments of blue jeans, pool tarp, and couch cushion found on the road. The conclusion was Jason had been shot in the head, likely while lying down, and then dragged along the roadway like a sled. That appeared like the most plausible theory, but to prove it all the way through would be a tall order. Because in their initial search of the home during what was then a missing person case, deputies didn't find any obvious indications of a violent crime. So one question was, where did this happen? After a neighborhood canvass, investigators found no surveillance video or eyewitness report of unusual activity. So another was, when did this happen? And because Jason was a big guy, standing at 6 feet tall and weighing 224 pounds, the final question to address was, who could pull this off?
Would you be willing to call Drew and tell him that Jason was found and he's been killed?
Yeah,
Would you be willing to do that?
yeah.
Michael Clark had spent the last 14 years in the Air Force, first as an aircraft mechanic for 8, then as a recruiter for 4, and then back to bird maintenance by the time he was brought to the sheriff's office to sit on the hot seat to answer some questions. It was now the evening of July 5, a handful of days after Jason was found and hours after the sheriff's office executed an audacious attempt to secretly record a confession from the prime suspect in his fellow airman's death. The 33-year-old, who went by his middle name Drew, grew up in the Cincinnati area and did recruiting for the Air Force in the Eastgate area before being moved to the Dyess Air Force Base in Abilene, Texas in May 2018. Despite him and his wife going through divorce proceedings involving custody of his 2 children, he was trying to set himself up for the rest of his life. He had purchased a home in Abilene the month before his move down south and, on the week of Jason's death, he initiated his paperwork to re-enlist for the last time to collect a lifetime pension and a bonus he said would be used to pay down his debt. Things were looking okay for him until this detour. On the 4th of July, he agreed to get involved in a sting operation that went catastrophically wrong. Now he sits here at the Clermont County Sheriff's Office for a debrief about how it all went so badly. But why him? Michael first met Jason and Angelina at an Air Force function at the end of 2015. It basically was just saying hi, and that was the extent of the relationship, he said in court. But over the years, the relationship developed. Michael grew friendly and fond of Jason and Angelina, respectively. By January 2018, Michael knew enough about the Hamricks to be aware of the trouble in their marriage. Short of outright separation or divorce, or murder, I guess, no example was more real in that moment than seeing Jason physically leave the cruise ship that Angelina, Michael, and his wife were on because he couldn't deal with Angelina. That was before he became aware that Angelina was tossed out of the Hamrick marital home. To Clermont County Sheriff's detectives, less than a handful of days into the investigation, Angelina had ample motive and the proximity to pull off the ultimate crime, and Michael could serve as a useful tool to catch Angelina admitting to some kind of involvement in Jason's murder by taking advantage of the trust built between him and her. At 11 a.m. on that Monday, hours after Angelina ended her initial interview, Michael gets a call from the sheriff's office asking him to get involved in the investigation. The first stage of this operation, he is told, is to record his phone calls with her, to which he agrees. The sheriff's office then phones up the Texas Rangers Agency, which provides him with a recording device.
I've been living 10 years with the person that's been hated me whole 10 years. According to the messages to his mother and stuff like this, he's been complaining her so much about me. He's been coming home and told me that he loves me. And just a Russian is always fun. If you like person, doesn't matter what's going on, you like gonna say what you think. But in American, no, you're supposed to be nice, smile, but soon as the person tilts around, you're gonna say shit, you know.
Yeah.
How in America works.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
You've admitted to having thoughts of running away to Mexico and Russia with the kids.
Oh, jeez.
Because you might try to run away with them.
But it's my kids, I can go wherever I want to go. I'm so stressed. Something gonna happen to me. I will get in a car accident or something. I feel better, but I did feel bad before. I had like heart attack condition.
What happened?
Just a lot of stress, I guess, but I just had hard breathing and seems like my heart is not doing good. Which is understandable in my situation, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
I think, I will tell you what the Burger told me. His name is Burger. Ha ha ha. He looked like Burger kind of too.
Okay.
He said that he been killed in a barn and he's been taken by the mower somewhere. I couldn't figure out how this could work. So somebody killed him and drove the body on the lawnmower.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
I just can't imagine this picture, honestly. It seems so weird to me, like, you know, like a comics.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think I have a box in the house?
What do you mean?
With some listening devices and shit?
I have no idea how that crap works. I don't know if they're allowed to do that, or if they are allowed to, how long it takes for them to get approved to do it. I don't have any idea.
Okay. You're gonna fly tomorrow? What airlines? What time you come?
I have to check my stuff for what airline, I don't remember. I'll be getting there around 11 at night.
At night?
Yeah.
What hotel gonna stay at?
There's one in Eastgate.
They get nothing from her directly admitting involvement in the murder, but learn that she traveled to Indiana on July 2 to try to get her kids, whom she wanted to take to Russia or Mexico, which would have been illegal. She also doesn't spare a thought for Jason. Plan A, otherwise, is a bust. 2 days later, on the 3rd of July, Detective Berger calls up the Air Force's Office of Special Investigations and asks for and receives 2 agents to join him at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport to meet with Michael in person. The 4 men get together on the 4th, shake hands, and, with time to spare before their flight up to Ohio, grab lunch at the local TGI Fridays. Over that meal, Michael assures a skeptical Detective Berger that he is going to speak the truth, Over and over, Detective Berger is trying to ensure that Michael understands how serious a mission like this is. But being truthful and being skeptical about the mission were not mutually exclusive concepts to Michael. I knew it was going to fail, Michael would later say in court, adding he suggested other ideas instead. Their plan was horrible from the get-go. It was poorly thought out. As Americans popped fireworks in the night sky on Independence Day, determined investigators were focused on liberating themselves from this case once and for all. They were laser focused on the classic primary suspect, the apathetic new widow. And whether they liked it or not, they were about to get their own private fireworks show. After getting out of Cincinnati Airport, the four headed to the Clermont County Sheriff's Office, where Michael was briefed on the operation. Hooked up with a wire, Michael was told he would meet Angelina at the Meyer grocery store in Eastgate for dinner and then have a chat about her situation in room 516 of the Eastgate Holiday Inn Express. Investigators set up the adjacent room 518 so they could monitor the activities in the subject's room. That night, Michael travels to the Meyer store, where he sees Angelina paying off her store credit card. He immediately notices that she's on edge and not acting like herself. Without saying a word, she starts feeling his chest for a wire. They then grab dinner and travel to the Holiday Inn Express. The hotel room Angelina and Michael were occupying was rigged with 3 cameras, 2 of which Michael was told about. The rules were simple in theory, but apparently difficult to pull off in practice. Don't go in the bathroom, and don't leave Angelina alone in the room. But things go off the rails quickly. He testified that an immediately suspicious Angelina goes into the bathroom and points to a black bag and questions what it is before taking out a hairdryer. At some point, the water is turned on in the bathroom, so it's hard to capture on Michael's mic what the two are talking about. And then Angelina asks Michael to get the dinner leftovers from the car, to which he obliges. Both rules torpedoed. When Michael returns, Angelina tells him she wants to go for a swim in the downstairs pool, so they both leave the room. But the pool is locked, so they sit and speak about her situation on a bench outside. Investigators, now stuck in a room wondering what in the world is happening, are squeezing their headphones closer to their eardrums, but the discussion the two are having is unintelligible as there's lots of rustling. At some point, Michael tells Angelina that he'd be right back. He tells investigators that they need a new plan, but by then, they already decide to call off the operation. It wasn't just the rules of the operation that were broken, but 2 of their cameras as well. Angelina found the ones Michael knew about and destroyed them while he was gone. The 3rd camera sat unharmed. I don't believe it could get any worse, Detective Berger said in court about the sting. Part of why this operation was such a bad idea, according to Michael, was because Angelina had worked in hotels while she was living in North Carolina. It was extremely obvious it was a camera, he said in court. It is a fake plant on a desk pointing in the direction of the bed. Hotel rooms do not have fake plants. She would know that a hotel room does not have a fake plant in it. The second broken camera was in a trash can with a black bag. Michael said hotel room trash bags are either clear or white, and he said Angelina would have known this. Now we're back here, at the sheriff's office for a debrief on the evening of the 5th, where Michael tells them she didn't say anything of investigative value.
She was complaining, I'm not sure if this is how it came up, but she was complaining about the whole search and what you guys took, and then was pretty much calling you guys incompetent because you didn't find his phone and she did.
But it's an old phone, is that what she's saying?
Right, yes sir.
Earlier that day, at 4 a.m., Angelina had appeared out of nowhere at the sheriff's office looking exhausted.
Don't you think it's pretty odd she shows up here
Very
at
much.
4 o'clock in the morning?
Very much.
I mean, she's looking for you. That's my guess.
Okay.
Had the phone, I mean, you know.
I could believe that as well. She never mentioned bringing the phone to you guys at dinner. So I don't understand what she's doing, unless she's trying to confess.
I mean, do you think she's the type of person that's going to confess?
No, but Kinda, maybe.
It appeared Angelina was sick of being tailed, and she wanted Detective Robinson to know about it.
I just don't understand. Is it going to be helpful if I do not
I
die?
think they.
Maybe I should jump from the beach.
I think that they think that you do understand, that you do know.
Oh no, I don't know anything.
If you killed your husband, then you brought it on yourself.
But if I'm not,
Well, it looks like as if that you did.
so how am I supposed to? Did I drive him or what? What's the version?
Have you thought about killing your husband?
He even thought about killing me. He
Okay.
said antifreeze. What is he calling it? Hitman. Hitman? Something else.
He's talked about a hitman?
He been talking about, even with my friends in Russia, how he wants to kill me.
Okay.
And I bet I did joke about it a
What?
couple times. But I don't even remember it.
How recent did you find out that he was talking about maybe
I don't know, maybe months ago or so.
a month ago?
And now I'm sure I've been joking with my friends. Hey, he gonna kill me.
So,
If you guys think I did it, I want you to just put me to jail. I want you to stop just torturing me.
As much as it appeared she wanted to move on, Angelina kept coming back and talking to investigators, which is exactly what they wanted. The Clermont County Sheriff's detectives stuck to various interview techniques with her. They tried to mitigate the seriousness of the crime, they turned on Michael, and they feigned ignorance for as long as they could. The goal was to keep her talking and pray that evidence that emerged later would contradict her statements. In his first interview with her, Detective Berger really didn't know much. The case was fluid, so little evidence was collected and few conclusions were drawn at that point. But with time, the case's foundations were being laid with various statements, brick by brick. For example, Angelina may not have known that investigators obtained important witness statements before she stepped into the sheriff's office that morning. One from a neighbor of the Hamricks, and another from Angelina's 7-year-old son, with one statement still to come. It was going to be from the man already inside the office, who was about to drop a bombshell on them. Roughly 3.5 out of the 72 acres of land owned by Bill Skvarla and Patricia Hornack at 2543 Swings Corner Point, Isabel Road, were dedicated to vines. Their ranch house was set back about 800 feet from the road, with a barn that was converted into a self-sufficient business called the Harmony Hill Vineyards and Estate Winery, outfitted with a tasting bar and live music open only on Friday and Saturday nights between May and October. Bill and Patricia saw the Hamricks move into the neighborhood and had been friendly with them ever since. The friendliness was standard fare neighborly behavior, a wave, maybe some small talk when they were in proximity, such as when Bill and Jason crossed paths as they mowed their lawns 2 days before the latter's disappearance, and occasional visits to the winery. Angelina had been to the winery all of 6 times, with one of those visits coming in the early evening of Friday, June 28. It is hopping on this night. A part of the winery is booked for a private birthday party for around 60 people, with another unexpected party being held for about 20 people under the apron. In total, close to 400 people are packed into the largely outdoor venue with live music that can be heard from some distance. Bill and Patricia are running around trying to keep order and fulfill customer requests. Angelina enters about an hour after the winery's 5 p.m. opening, grabs a bar stool, and drags it toward the corner of the tasting bar. Meanwhile, it's Jason's last Friday on Earth. He is launching firecrackers with his children at their home ahead of the 4th of July festivities. He picked up a triple whistler, a Poco Loco, and a Morning Glory from Phantom Fireworks in Sharonville at around 5:30 p.m., according to receipt records. Before that, surveillance video captured him in the subway at 2241 Crown Point in Cincinnati that afternoon, getting himself a 6-inch steak and cheese sub, drink, and chips. Angelina slips $20 to Patricia for a pitcher of sangria, which is equal to about 2 glasses of wine. Between managing the private parties and the tasting bar, Patricia has intermittent conversations with her. The very first convo, I went over and looked at her and said, "You look really sad," Patricia recalled in court. "What's going on over there?" And she said, same old stuff. Fighting about the kids, that she was back staying at the house to watch the kids. She was basically giving me updates about her life situation. In a later conversation, Angelina shows Patricia photos on her phone. According to Patricia, it was of Angelina's bruised legs, of her son with an apparent bruise on his face, and a photo of their youngest son at the bottom of their basement stairs, where she alleged Jason put him to sleep with their dogs. She said she had plans to leave the home and move into another house she purchased in Bethel. Investigators later confirmed that Angelina closed the purchase on July 3 of the home on South Charity Street, a mere 4-minute drive from Jason's home, and planned to move in the next day. She had told me she was feeling very frustrated because the court was leaving her no option but to either take the kids and go to Moscow or to kill him, Patricia said flatly. She said it at least 3 times that I recall that night because I remember her saying, "What would you do?" I said, "Angelina, that's not the answer." Angelina returns home at around 8 p.m. She rallies the boys to the backyard to set up a bonfire, which is being created out of some sticks the boys collected from the wooded area on the property. At some point, Angelina leaves the boys as they flip their sticks to heat both sides of their marshmallows. A little bit later, the middle Hamrick goes to get a glass of water from inside. As he tries getting through the sliding glass door that opened into the living room, his mother stops him and tells him she'll get it for him. The boy's eyes, however, are already fixated on his father, laying on the living room couch with what he said was a pillow over his head. At around 9 p.m., Angelina rejoins the boys at the bonfire before they briefly hit up the pool, during which time Angelina is seen talking on the phone. After she finishes the call, she suggests they go for pizza at Little Caesars in Amelia before they get gas at Meyer. When they return an hour and a half later, or thereabouts, they sit at the kitchen counter and eat their slices. It was late, past 10:30 p.m., so they immediately go to bed afterward. The Hamrick children will never see their dad again.
If you killed your husband, I know that you feel that you did it for what you believe to have been for the benefit of yourself and your children.
Wait a second.
Perhaps you believed.
What kind of benefit? I'm not on his life insurance. Don't have access to any his credit cards or his whatever saving account he has. Have nothing. He had 3 months before the retirement, which I had to receive his 1/3 of his retirement, and I don't have it now.
Well, that's not. I don't think that's the most important thing to you. I don't think money is the most important thing to you. You said it earlier. The most important thing to you is your children. You gave birth to these children. You know,
I don't care.
So money wouldn't. I don't think
This
money
court
is the
system
motive.
is don't care against the mothers.
Angelina, I'm just going to be honest with you. From what I overheard, it's all pointing to you. That you killed your husband.
And what did I do?
That you murdered your husband. And you placed his body where it was found.
The evidence did appear like it was pointing at Angelina. Patricia testified that Angelina told her on the Monday after her initial interview that when they searched Patricia's barn and the lake owned by the winery, they wouldn't find any evidence because "I wouldn't do that to you," Angelina allegedly told Patricia, alluding to a frame job. Pretty good witness testimony if you're a cop. But the physical evidence is the juicy stuff, like, say, a photo of an email Jason sent his divorce lawyer that was found on Angelina's phone. Angelina had fired several frustrating texts to her friends about this email, which was made 2 days before Jason's murder. The original arrangement when Angelina moved back in, according to her, was that Jason would, at least in the interim, go 50-50 custody on the kids, provided she assisted with their care. But the email, which was about the custody hearing at 10 a.m. on that Monday, told a different story. Jason told his lawyer he was not going to formally agree to 50-50. The couch on which the Hamrick child said he last saw his father was a focus of a second formal search of the residence on July 6. It lit up when treated with Blue Star, a form of luminol. It looked like a bloodbath occurred, with blood pooling underneath the couch on the carpet and under the carpet itself. The right corner of the couch had been ripped, the fluff contained within matching the debris found on the road. When they removed the couch, investigators measured the space between the punctures in the carpet, which is where the weight of the legs on the couch rested. They observed multiple puncture points, indicating to them that the couch had been moved, presumably to clean the area. Investigators also followed a blood trail to the basement and the washer and dryer. There were what looked like blood spots on the basement stairs and on the basement floor, leading toward the appliances, which also had blood spots. Some towels and blankets, which were presumed to be on the couch, were cleaned, folded, and placed on an elliptical exercise machine. On the deck, investigators found some tiny blotches of what looked like dried blood, which appeared to have leaked through the deck. The droplets were found to have been Jason's blood, some of it mixed with Angelina's DNA. By the time of the execution of that warrant, investigators had developed a new theory about what happened. They believed that Angelina had left the children at the bonfire, snuck through the sliding glass door, walked past a resting or sleeping Jason on the couch, went to his room, unlocked the gun box and took his gun, went downstairs, pressed the gun against the top of his skull, and fired a single 9mm bullet as live music from the winery played that night. Despite eating their pizza on the kitchen counter, the boys said they didn't notice their father laying dead on the couch. Investigators believed that Angelina went out with the boys late by design, so they would be in bed as soon as possible, allowing her to move the body undisturbed. They posited that she cut out a piece of pool tarp, rested it in front of the couch, rolled Jason's body on it, and dragged it through the sliding glass door, across the deck, down toward the garage. She then went inside Jason's newly purchased Toyota Sienna and pulled down the back seat, where she laid some carpet tiles, presumably so he wouldn't leak on the bed of the car. But because she couldn't physically lift him, she somehow tied him to the back of the van and drove it, dragging his body like a sled before putting him in the ditch. She then took some of the grass clippings on the property and put it over the body in a presumed attempt to conceal her handiwork. She then spent the next day cleaning up the mess. Investigators observed that every other room in the house was a mess except for the area where the alleged murder occurred, suggesting that that was the focus of the cleaning effort. What was also interesting to investigators was that Angelina, ironically, may have been too cooperative. She urged them to check the cameras at the place she and the kids went out that Friday night, handing over her credit card number to check against store copy receipts. Investigators must have assumed she didn't bank on them doing any extracurricular work, because Detective Nicholas Crouch was alerted by Meyer's asset protection employee that, hey, while you're here, you might be interested in knowing that the woman had also purchased bleach and lemon-scented disinfecting wipes at 1:15 p.m. that Friday. The surveillance stills show her at the checkout and then leaving with the items, kids in tow. Detectives further learned from an investigator at the County Department of Job and Family Services that Angelina had a food stamp card on which the detective learned she used at a Walmart in Amelia the next day, Saturday, and purchased hydrogen peroxide, baking soda, and a needle and thread that matched the color of the couch that was ripped when she was moving the body. While purchasing household cleaning items is normal, investigators wondered, if she didn't do the crime, why didn't she offer them information about those purchases? At around 4:30 a.m. Saturday, Jason's phone, which contained Google Nest camera footage that may have captured what occurred that night, makes its final communication with a cell tower near Bellevue Beach Park in the Ohio River, where it is believed she disposed of the phone, gun, and tarp. Those items were never recovered. The fact that Angelina, who did not take her phone with her when she went to dispose of the evidence, didn't try calling Jason's phone at any point while he was missing, was another telling piece of the story to investigators. She spends nearly the entire weekend cleaning, according to investigators. She's vacuuming, shampooing, scrubbing. By the end of it, there were 3 empty bottles of hydrogen peroxide in the trash can they found during the first search. She does her best to clean Jason's Toyota Sienna, but leaves behind spots of Jason's blood on the gas cap release lever, the steering wheel, the hatch release at the rear, and the driver's side compartment. Remnants of grass clippings and mud on the rearview mirror and the gear shift were found, all areas that would be easy to miss if you're hastily trying to clean up before your in-laws realize their son hasn't shown up for their planned Sunday meetup. Then, After deputies arrive to respond to a missing person report from those in-laws, you ask whether they are going to bring out the canine units.
They're gonna come with the dogs too? They're coming with the dogs?
The what?
Dogs coming?
I think so. That's up to my boss, Corporal Cooper.
Out of concern for your missing husband, or if you are Googling police dogs, is it out of concern you will get found out?
What's up, man? You're sorry. For what?
Wasting your time, not telling you sooner.
You didn't clear it up for me then? All I know is that you didn't do so well. Did pretty horrible. Which I kind of guessed because you told me from the minute I started talking to you, you're a horrible liar.
Yep.
So why don't we start over?
Michael Clark had greased up his hands pretty good. It was early Sunday evening in Texas, that whirlwind last day of June, and he's helping a fellow airman change the front left wheel hub of his Toyota Tacoma pickup truck when he gets a call. The aircraft maintenance guy, who wouldn't have imagined being involved days later in a sting operation, let alone a laughably dismal one, smiles as he wipes his hands and raises the phone to his ear. It's Angelina.
It wasn't a very long phone call, and she had told me that cops were there and stuff. The call wasn't very long, and it didn't stick out in my mind enough, because when you called me in the morning on Monday, I kind of think you actually woke me up. So when you asked me if she had told me anything on Sunday, I had forgotten. And when I remembered, it was too late. I already told you she didn't tell me anything. So I was worried about getting in trouble for lying about that.
After getting off the phone, Michael tells his buddy, well, she definitely did it now. Michael testified in court that prior to that call, for some reason, he jokingly told his friend that Angelina might have killed her husband. After being told the police were at her home on a welfare check, that little bit of doubt started to leave him. After consulting with his friend, Michael said he decided to sleep on it.
Did you ever think she'd hurt anybody?
No, sir.
Until now?
Right until now, no, sir. Never thought she would. That's why I talked to her about hurting somebody, because I never thought it would actually happen.
When detectives called Michael on that Monday to take part in the sting operation, he surprised them by being upfront about what Angelina had told him over the course of many phone calls, that she fantasized about killing her husband, shooting, stabbing, poisoning, though she seemed fixated on the shooting method. As for where she wanted it done, she thought aloud, maybe at the daycare, or maybe in the garage. Her preference was ultimately somewhere in the Hamrick home. When Detective Robinson asks her about those conversations at just before dawn after the sting operation, she begins to doubt the competence of the detectives.
Did you ever make a decision and then you got something that made you think differently?
Are you like saying if I made a decision and regretted it, or
if you thinking that it's me and then later you found something that will tell you that it's not me?
Yeah, I make mistakes. And am I wrong sometimes? Yeah, I am.
So this time you're wrong too?
Well, I don't believe so. Not from what I've seen, and I see a woman who seems to be scared, a woman who does love her children, otherwise she wouldn't have been living in that house in the first place, and maybe a woman who felt that she didn't have anything else to do and no other choices. And then...
There are always choices.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because if you knowingly made that choice, then I see no remorse. I see, really, I don't want you to get upset at me for saying this. I'm just being honest. I want you to be honest with me. If that's the truth, you made that choice, then you're nothing but a cold-hearted killer.
You just
there is no remorse here.
You're looking in the wrong place.
Good luck. Angelina,
you're looking in the wrong place.
we're not looking in the wrong place.
Wrong place.
We need... Okay, so you're talking about killing Jason and shooting Jason
Not about him.
or stabbing Jason, who would it be about?
I will bring it to you tomorrow. Do you know this game that's called Detective?
I don't know the game called Detective.
It's
Unless that's what we're playing now. I don't know.
No, the game called Detective, and you're making up the stuff that exact like what's around you, and you like investigate the stuff there online and going through the houses, like looking for evidence and stuff like this. Have you ever played this game?
No.
It's called Detective.
Angelina explained that when she was talking to Michael about killing Jason, she was brainstorming solutions for puzzles in a video game called Detective. The detective in front of her, wait for it, wasn't buying it.
Our brains just working differently, yours and mine. And the right way, I can see more things than you can see, especially the house.
I see a man who was lying in a ditch, dead, not a half a mile from his house, and he's...
Alright, how would I do it?
Are you going to tell me? How would the game do it? How would you do it in the game?
I probably couldn't do it myself. I could have like at least 2 men helping me, right?
I don't know.
Or you think I did it myself?
2 men helping you? Why would it have to be men?
No.
Why couldn't it be women?
Am I strong enough for it?
Well, I mean, 2 women. 2 women could pick up somebody.
No way.
You
Do you
know,
have some cases that you've been working on right now, other than my case, and you don't know answers?
Well, I'm not really working on your case. I mean, I'm not
No.
assigned to the case,
No,
but I mean, I know about it.
No. Do you have other cases that...
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you want me to give you the answers on what you have?
Sure. Are you going to do that through the detective, or?
No, I can look at it and I can give you answers. According to what you took from my barn, it has to be me on the mower.
Have you ridden a mower before?
Yeah, I know how to do it, but how are you expecting me? Is it daytime or nighttime? What should you say? If it's daytime, how it's
Probably
possible?
nighttime, yeah.
Nighttime on the mower.
You be being loud?
Of course! Did you try to start this mower?
No, I wasn't around.
It's making noise like a helicopter driving around. So I hit it while everybody's sleeping. How I would move him?
How would you move it? Several ways. Pull him off the bed.
No, too heavy.
Oh, you could get him off the bed.
Probably, yeah.
I know small nurses who are nurses have to
Yeah,
roll
but how
people.
far to carry? Like if you said a half of mile being found, how would I do it? I probably can't lift him.
I would say there'd be all kinds of ways. Put him in a vehicle. Put him in a car.
I wouldn't lift him up from the floor. How would I lift him up from the floor to put him in there? Hit in the head, I like better. No evidence, no blood.
Well, especially while sleeping, because they don't see it coming, and then they can't fight back.
Sleeping, if you're gonna miss it, you're gonna get in big trouble.
You need to make sure you don't miss, I guess. If you felt that the justice system couldn't serve you properly, I wish you would have came here. And there's so many people here at this office that really could have helped you before those choices were made.
You're smart and he's not. Just tell you that.
Well, I think you're smart too.
I'm not.
Oh, yes you are. Yes you are. You know you are.
If everything's gonna be fine, will give me a job here.
I don't think so, Angelina.
You don't think?
I don't think so. But before certain choices were made, possibly in your husband's situation, your husband's case, let's say you're playing this detective game, it seems like you would be pretty smart to be able to play this detective game. How do I know you're not playing this detective game to be smart enough to kill your husband?
How am I smarter than you guys that made all this listening shit in the hotel room?
And the what?
Listening stuff in the hotel room, cameras and all this equipment.
Well, I wasn't up there, but I don't know about that. But I would agree with you.
They're not smart.
You are.
But they're not.
Now, are you smart because of this detective game, or are you smart just because you're smart?
No, I'm smart because of the game. It's a game.
But
conversation, I'm gonna prove it.
She didn't. When detectives went to the home to follow through on the second search warrant on July 6, they didn't find a game called Detective among the game boxes in her eldest son's room. What they did find, however, was an empty shell casing among the game boxes that told a revealing final piece of this story. Roughly 3 weeks before Jason's death, at 3:13 p.m. on June 8, Angelina took and sent to Michael a photo of her holding a 9mm shell casing in the palm of her hand. Angelina had, by that point, just moved back into Jason's home when she went through his closet and found the gun box and the key to open it. She told me that she shot it outside of the window into the backyard to see if the noise would cause cops to show up, Michael said in court. She said no one showed up. An empty shell casing was later found near some video game boxes in her son's room, around where investigators believe she fired the trial round. 2019 was not Angelina's year. She had lost custody of her kids after the children's court-appointed liaison, or what's called an ad litem, accused her of leaving the children alone at home and causing them distress. One of the boys, according to court records, said he wanted a new mom because she was mean, with one example being that she allegedly stabbed one of the children with a pencil when she was angry at him. The record further shows that the liaison further alleged that the boys appeared afraid to answer her questions about concerns related to their mother's treatment of them. But that didn't stop Angelina from trying to get them back, by any means necessary. In February, she claimed that Jason had physically assaulted one of their children for throwing a video game controller, but no charges were filed after the child was found to have no marks or bruises. The next month, Jason called the sheriff's office to tell them that he had to block Angelina from leaving his driveway after she snuck their youngest son out of the window. The incident occurred on the day of Angelina's visitation, but she showed up 3 hours after her scheduled time was supposed to have ended. That same night, at just after 7 p.m., she requested a welfare check on the children and reported that the kids were scared of Jason. But when the sheriff's office responded to the home, they saw the children watching television and found no issues. It seemed that with every complaint she filed, Angelina didn't get what she wanted. She couldn't contain her frustration with the system, going so far as to admit to Detective Berger that she intended to take the kids and flee to Russia, which would have been in contempt of court. Investigators found her expired passports in the home and in her car. She admitted to Detective Berger but didn't reveal to anyone else but Michael that she asked her mother for Russian passports for her and the kids, and that she was just waiting on those to process before leaving. She indicated that she bought the house on South Charity Street because she thought maybe, with Jason taking her in, she'd be able to take custody of the kids 4 days a week. But realizing that Jason did not intend to split custody likely set her off ahead of the hearing on Monday. Investigators concluded, as such, that she killed Jason over that matter. Depending on how closely you've been paying attention, there may be several questions that have been percolating in your mind. How did Michael put up with all this trauma dumping without chucking his phone? How did Angelina not feel the wire when she pat Michael down at the beginning of the sting? And above all else, why hadn't Michael notified the cops about any of this sooner? We'll take these in reverse order. The short answer to the last question is that Michael's career hinged on keeping his conversations with Angelina a secret because he was forbidden by the Air Force from communicating with her. That resulted from an incident in the summer of 2018 when Jason was, according to Angelina, kicked out of the Hamrick home for about a week. She told Michael that she needed help drafting an email to send to Jason's Air Force superiors because she claimed that he wasn't following the force's rules on supporting his family. Despite being work friends, at least at some point, Michael agreed to effectively turn against Jason and drafted the letter sent it to Angelina, who then sent it to Jason's bosses. But Jason was made aware and told Michael's wife about it. Michael confessed to his spouse that he wrote it. The confession bounced around the upper echelons of the Air Force like a pinball. Jason took it to his bosses, who then took it to Michael's bosses. The Air Force was sick of it, because according to court statements, this wasn't the first time Angelina and Michael brought forth unfounded allegations against Jason. On August 23, 2018, Michael's commanding officer in Texas served him with a no-contact order, stipulating that he would have no communication, voice or written, with Jason and Angelina. By the time of Jason's murder, the no-contact order was still in effect, meaning he was in violation of it, good enough to have him terminated. That is, if he was found out. That's the backdrop for the sting operation. Before they flew up to Ohio, Michael warned investigators that the operation was already in jeopardy. Angelina had offered to pay for Michael's flight and rental car, but he declined on investigator advice. The government was going to pay for his travel, they said. This arrangement didn't make sense according to Michael because Angelina would have known that he didn't have money. He had just purchased a home and still needed to furnish it. Investigators told him to tell her that he got money from friends, but she would have known that this was unlike him, a self-described introvert who didn't like talking to people. Then they told him to tell her he was using his Air Force credit card, which is illegal without permission. Not smart for someone trying to avoid getting found out. But investigators never bought into these reasons as to why the operation failed.
How fast did this go south?
Really fast.
It went south from the get-go because why? Because you were coming up here, she's patting you down, she already knows that she already knows she told you that she did it. And now you're coming up here and now you're going to ask her questions and she's patting you down and all this stuff.
I thought she was going to...
It was a mess.
It was...
And it was a mess because you already knew that she killed him.
So, how did Angelina not find the wire? The answer is, actually, she did. Either during or before the pat-down. Michael didn't have high hopes for the operation from the beginning because he didn't want it to succeed, investigators believe. Fiddling around in his pocket to make it harder to make out what was being said, speaking in the bathroom with the water running, leaving the hotel room, and telling her the location of 2 of the 3 cameras, the only cameras detectives told him about, so she could yank them. Not telling him about the location of the 3rd camera practically served as a hedge against the operation's failure by confirming their distrust in him.
Did you tell her where the cameras were at?
No, definitely not.
Cause see, I have a hard time with that. After talking not just one guy that saw it, but she flat went straight to those cameras and yanked them.
I understand, but I didn't.
And it sounds like you were manipulating the recording device in your pocket when you guys were downstairs on the bench, like trying to cover up, like make noise so we couldn't hear what you were saying. It just sounded like you were just trying to prevent us from hearing what you were saying. You knew the phone was a recording device, yet you left it in the room.
Because she had just picked it up and questioned me on it.
And then you have one in your pocket and you're sitting there tapping it or whatever, you're doing to it, and you're making it hard for us to hear. Again, it doesn't, that's all, where we're at right now, that doesn't matter.
Prior to this interview, which came after the sting debrief, Michael apologized for not coming forth with new information beforehand. He had previously answered no to being asked if he knew who killed Jason, but in fact, he did know. During this, let's call it the confession interview, he drops the bombshell that makes him the state's star witness. As Angelina was with her children by the pool, she calls him.
So why don't we start over?
On Friday, after it happened, she called me.
After what happened?
After she shot him.
Okay.
She told me he shot him on the couch. That she needed me there. I had to help her. He told me she was outside with the boys while she was talking to me. I could hear him in the background. They're swimming. When she first said she did it, I didn't believe her. And she kept getting more and more irritated at me for not believing her. So when I believed her, and told her she needed to get rid of him.
For the first time, Michael admits that Angelina had told him, "I did it." She didn't explicitly say, "I killed Jason with a gunshot to the head, then dragged him to a ditch half a mile down the road," because the kids were near. Michael was telling the detective a synthesized version of disparate pieces of information he alleged she told him. Because the "I did it" was self-evident to Michael. He knew what she meant because he had spent months on the phone fielding her complaints about Jason, about how he was getting in the way of her being with the kids, and about the various ways she conceived of killing him. Michael knew what she meant, in fact, because he offered to do it himself. "She had asked me if I had a plan to kill Jason," Michael said in court. "After multiple repeated attempts of her asking me, I got fed up of talking to her about it. So I just said, 'Yeah, don't worry about it, I have a plan.' And then her response was, 'Don't worry about it, I'll take care of it.' This was around the time she discovered Jason's gun in his closet." While he later claimed he wasn't actually being serious about doing it, he did provide logistical support along the way. For example, he played the role of a dead Jason, going limp so that Angelina could practice dragging him. The plan, at least in Angelina's mind, was to have Michael help her, either do it himself or help her move the body and or clean up. But there were several things weighing on him at the time: the no contact order, his own divorce and custody case, and the fact that he would need to obtain a leave slip from his base to go that far up north. If his superiors tried reaching him and he wasn't in Texas, they would terminate him for sure. "I didn't call the police because I was scared," he said in court. "I had a lot to lose, and that initial night I was still in disbelief, not real positive that she did it."
Once I believed her, told her she needed to put him in the van and take him somewhere far. She said the spot down by my brother's old house, and I agreed to that.
It was confirmed that Michael was in Texas all weekend and therefore couldn't physically have a hand in the killing or the cleanup. He hoped that Angelina would just simply repeat, "I did it" to him over the phone recording. But Angelina hardened, her trust in people blunted, and she pretended that her confession to Michael never happened.
When people are killed, there's typically a couple reasons. Either it's over drugs, money, or relationship. Those are the most common reasons why people are killed.
Going by Detective Berger's rubric for common crime motives, there was no drug influence in this case. Angelina, who didn't have a job, would have gotten $200,000 from Jason's Air Force plan, so that may have played some influence. And the relationship motive could have branching components: custody of the children, which investigators in the state settled on as the driving force behind the murder, and any extracurricular hanky-panky, to put it in less formal terms. That brings us to question 1. Why did Michael put up with Angelina and do any of what was just mentioned? I think it's pretty obvious at this point. I first met her at the same time I met Jason, at a work function at the end of 2015, he recalled in court. At the time, it basically was just saying hi, and that was the extent of the relationship. However, by October 2017, we got drunk and had sex. That turned into a friendship that turned into a relationship. We continued to see each other after October 2017. It was a secret affair. We didn't tell anyone. We met in private. We would go to places where no one who knew us would see us. He said the two would communicate over Facebook Messenger, with him using his own account and Angelina using a dummy. The only time he said he got caught at the Hamrick home was by her eldest son, and it's not clear if this is what prompted divorce proceedings. He said he had spent the week at the Hamrick home when Jason was supposedly kicked out. The affair was continued after he was moved to Abilene. She traveled down a handful of times to see him. When she did come down, Michael told his fellow airmen to lie if they saw him with her, putting their careers in the line of fire. Whenever he was up in Ohio, the two would meet mostly at the Meyer in Eastgate, but they would also go to places they knew no one who knew them would see them: church parking lots and parks, including the Bellevue Beach Park near the Ohio River, where they had sex and where evidence was believed to have been disposed. Michael was upfront about his romantic relationship with Angelina. He told investigators as much on the very first call with them on July 1, the same call he told them that Angelina had talked about killing Jason. The only thing he withheld in that call was that she said she did it. Angelina was also upfront about her relationship with him and tried protecting him throughout.
Do you have a man that you see other than him?
Yeah.
Who's that?
He's living in Texas.
He lives in Texas. Have you told Drew the things that Jason's done to you, or that he's tried to kill you?
We've been talking about it, yeah, but...
Okay. Do you think that that would upset Drew?
No, he wouldn't do anything like this.
But even then, Michael and Angelina had different conceptions of what a relationship would look like between them. Angelina invited him to come live with her and the kids in Russia. Michael said she should leave the kids with Jason. Kids or not, it's hard to tell if this kind of relationship would have worked out anyway.
They were still having sex together. She admitted that to us.
Oh, yeah, well, she lied to me about that.
Of course she did. You said she's a liar.
Yeah.
You really, let me ask you something. You really think that a man that lets his wife back into the house, even though they're having problems, you think they're not screwing around?
That's the same because he couldn't afford childcare.
Dude, you said yourself she's a liar. You even said at one point that you thought she was you were just her next paycheck. You were just the person that was going to take care of her. Sounds like she used you.
After this interview, and on the advice of the prosecuting attorney's office, Michael and Angelina were both arrested and taken into custody. When police went to execute the arrest warrant at the Hamrick home, they found baking soda dropped in the area of Jason's blood near the couch. They believed Angelina wasn't ready for her fate. Michael was charged with conspiracy to commit aggravated murder, but pleaded down in December 2019 to a grand jury indictment of obstruction of justice, a third-degree felony. That plea included an admission that he told Angelina to get rid of the body, that he lied to investigators about his knowledge of the crime, and that, yes, he caused the sting operation to fail. On March 23, 2020, he was formally terminated from the Air Force on a less than honorable discharge. Fitting for an untrustworthy witness, conveyed Angelina's defense team, who argued that their client did not kill her husband. The airman who said he lost everything was, the defense team argued, still playing for something when he testified against his former lover. That the state gave itself the option to recommend a sentence for him. In other words, do well on the stand, and the government may recommend a lighter punishment, Angelina's lawyers argued. To the defense team, Michael's troubles didn't end at drunk sex with a fellow airman's wife. Michael and his wife had been living in something called post-housing, which is basically special lodging carved out for service people. The housing office required that Michael and his wife both live at the home to satisfy lodging rules, but the couple ended up separating. The housing office gave him 30 days' notice to find another place to live because his wife was no longer residing there. Michael said his wife wasn't splitting bills with him or paying child support to him, so he was left without enough money to get housing. That's when he allegedly devised a plan with his wife to forge some financial documents so he could take out a mortgage for a house in Abilene in April 2019. Michael took the Fifth Amendment in response to defense questions about that. The point is, Michael is not a trustworthy guy, the defense continued. Before the sting, detectives are skeptical that he is going to be truthful. Then he sabotages the operation. And he elects to do nothing when he is supposedly told that Angelina had killed her husband. Michael Clark was sentenced to 6 months in county jail, with 46 days of time served credit and 5 years of probation. For the rest of their arguments, the defense team simply pointed to an alleged lack of evidence. There is no gun for proof that she did it, and no reasonable explanation as to how she could have pulled off such a feat. When did she have the time to cut out a part of the tarp, slide Jason's 224-pound 6-foot frame on it, take it to the driveway, hook it up to the back of his van, and drive off with it? All without nobody seeing any of it. While some of the blood swabs had a mix of Jason's and Angelina's DNA, the defense team pointed to those that were either inconclusive for or excluding her DNA, including a swab from the washing machine. Elsewhere, the defense pondered that maybe the young Hamrick was denied entry when he went to get a glass of water because he had mud on him and not because she wanted to stop him from seeing his dead father. How did the children not remember seeing their dead father when they were eating pizza on the kitchen counter? If it was the case that they didn't see him because he wasn't there, then when would she have done all of this? From the time she got back from the winery, helped set up and sit by the bonfire, to when they left for pizza. If he was indeed moved before they went to get pizza, his body would have emanated something for the canine dogs which were deployed 2 days later to sniff out. But that wasn't the case. The state rebutted with the following. Angelina had the motive to kill Jason, whose body wouldn't need to be moved out of the home if he was killed by anyone else. Similar to that line of thinking, what random killer would stop to use the home's washer? She was not remorseful, using phrases like, "it is what it is," in light of her husband's disappearance. Detectives found no evidence of any threat from Jason to Angelina, yet in her interviews, she contradicts herself, saying on the one hand that things were good between them, and then on the other, that she slept with the kids because she feared him. The kids didn't see their father when they were eating their pizza because 1, the living area is far away, 2, it's dark, and 3, the couch always had stuff on it, such as pillows and blankets, which could have been used to conceal him. Finally, if Angelina had nothing to do with the murder, why did Michael sabotage the sting operation? The same reason she lied throughout her interviews when she denied Michael talked about hurting or killing Jason. He loved her like she loved him, and he didn't want her going away for something he already knew she did. Angelina Hamrick, whose entire criminal history consists of 2 traffic violations, was convicted of aggravated murder and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. She refused to give a statement at her sentencing hearing. When Angelina decided she didn't want to be with Jason anymore, she did everything she could to make his life miserable, the state argued, filing bogus complaints to the sheriff's office and to his workplace to get an advantage in the divorce proceedings. As such, she has been paid back with a miserable time in prison. She has had institutional adjustment for threatening jail staff, stating in one instance that she could punch an officer as she was being led back to her cell. She has been put on suicide watch a couple of times and has not wanted to take her medication. In a portion of her second interview with Detective Robinson, which is redacted, she jokes about killing the ad litem, the court-appointed liaison for the Hamrick children. For the rest of the case, Angelina didn't do herself any favors the more she talked. She got caught up in her own answers to detectives. She flip-flops on her supposed fear of Jason. She tries backtracking on knowing that Jason's cause of death was a bloody one when it was too early to tell. She lies for Michael about their discussions, and then provides what the prosecution described as the most egregious lie of all, that she was talking to Michael not about killing the real Jason, but a virtual Jason in a video game. Her interview with Detective Robinson several days after the discovery is, quite frankly, one of the most bizarre things I think I've ever heard in my career, lead prosecutor Catherine Terpstra said during the punishment phase. She's laughing when Robinson is telling her that they think that she is the one who killed Jason. Terpstra added that the Olivers' retirement years have been changed. The kids don't have a dad to play sports or go swimming with, and that Angelina has not expressed any remorse at any point during the legal proceedings. That is the type of facilitation of a relationship, facilitation of the crime, that goes above and beyond anything that I've seen in my career, Terpstra added. That is absolutely chilling to know that she begged to get back into this house, and out of his kindness, he allowed that to happen. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to me narrate this story, which is based on the primary sources. Special mention goes to the local reporters bringing light to these cases, to the staffs at the records departments for their hard work, and to you guys for engaging in the subject matter. Be well, do acts of charity, and I'll see you next time. Good night.